lot of music today talks about real specific things. I mean, cars, money, sex, whatever it is, right? A breakup, a person. But music, in its most fundamental sense, wasn't supposed to make us think about a specific memory or a place or somewhere we want to be or something we want to have or something we're attracted to. It was supposed to make us forget about everything entirely. It was supposed to change our experience of time. So in this video, I'd like to talk about how music can change your life. But first, before we get into it, I'd like to, as always, thank everybody who does watch and support us. And, remind those who enjoy the content that liking, commenting, and subscribing goes a huge distance for us. It's very hard to get going on here. The algorithm is unforgivable and it's a crowded space. But we want to get better at it. We want to be able to just initiate conversations that push us all forward to helping solve some of these problems and feel better about life. So I'd like to read a quote by Arthur Schopenhauer, 19th century German philosopher who played music every day before bed and read Eastern texts, mostly the Upanishads, before bed every single day. He wrote, "The inexpressible depth of music, so easy to understand and yet so inexplicable, is due to the fact that it reproduces all the emotions of our innermost being, but entirely without reality and remote from its pain. Music expresses only the quintessence of life and its events, never these themselves." So he's saying music expresses life itself, what's underneath life, what allows for events, not each individual specific event. Now, I'm not trying to talk down to pop music or contemporary music at all. I'm just trying to talk about music in a way that a lot of us aren't very familiar with. Now, there's another thinker that was captivated with Schopenhauer, Nietzsche. Both of them had this affinity for music and the arts, which was very different from the academic, sort of dry nature of most thinkers at the time. They believed that the arts were a better connection to reality and to understanding life than reason and concrete knowledge. Nietzsche took this affinity into his first work called The Birth of Tragedy, which actually has the subtitle that is never printed on it now, which is called Out of the Spirit of Music. He looked back at Greece to, Homer and Aeschylus and Sophocles and the art and amphitheaters and this, burgeoning art surrounding tragedy, right? Tragic plays, the creation of the tragic plays, and which often incorporated their god Dionysus, who was the god of, festivity, madness, passion, the god of forgetting who you are so that you can let go of the baggage and sort of be born again, even within your own life. There's this time of the Greeks thousands of years before us, but they tackled and overcame a lot of the questions that we still struggle to even ask the right way today. Instead of trying to sugarcoat it or cover it over, they decided to take on this tragic form, to take life head on and say, well, no, we're going to love life despite all the negative things and not pretend that someday we're going to be perfectly happy. So the question is, how did they do it? How did this tragic form and music help them do this? So through these tragic plays, you could forget the ego, right? You could let the full spectrum of your humanity loose. Kings would become peasants, peasants would become kings, men became women, and vice versa. And here's a quote of Nietzsche, right in this vein. "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." That's the spirit of Dionysus. That's this other half of man, right? That he countered to the Apollonian, perfectly reasonable person who's always perfect and always disciplined and always accomplishing things, right? He's just like, great, but that's going to be too much at some point. Someday, all that reason, all that logic, all that discipline, all those accomplishments are going to be controlling you. Someday they're going to be suffocating you. And you need to burn it all. You need to let it all go and start again. And part of what Nietzsche was trying to address is that, when we try to be perfect, we're always suppressing that other half. So Nietzsche lived in Victorian Europe, right, where these perfect moral things and this perfect manners and dress, he just thought there was something missing, that it was this dry, moral perfection was a facade, a trick, right? And it suppressed elements of the natural human condition that really did need to be expressed. Carl Jung, analytic psychologist, very much inspired by much of Nietzsche's work, said, "Good does not become better by being exaggerated, but worse. And a small evil becomes a big one through being disregarded and repressed." And so we still see this today. We still see this ignoring of much of our nature and trying to present, especially on social media or something, this image, this perfect Apollonian half, right? But Freud, someone else who tapped into this, said those passions are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. So it's always going to have its day, and you can't ignore it forever. And so something like music, we have raves and festivals. We have a lot of this stuff today, but even the Greeks would be like, well, this isn't really enough. This isn't as much about forgetting as it is about the event itself. We look at Eastern thinkers and then we think someone like Alan Watts, communicating a lot of Eastern thought to the West. This whole thing about music where it's not a destination, not a goal, not an accomplishment. Think about a song. And this is something that Alan Watts said that I'm paraphrasing, but is a song about getting to the end? No. It's like a movie too, watching a movie. It's never about, well, I can't wait for this to be over. No, you're in it. A song, a dance, right, is about the dance. It's never about the end of it. And so it's just this experience of time that's a little more authentic, right? It's not painted through like all this effort we're doing to get this reward or this goal. Alan Watts said, "We're living in an eternal now, and when we listen to music, we're not just listening to the past, we're not just listening to the future, we're listening to an expanded present." And so what that does is it allows us to be in sort of this moment, this present thing, in a more authentic, real way than we can otherwise. Even Albert Einstein was tapped into this. If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. What all of this speaks to is a kind of balance. Your passions need guidance, your rationality needs flair. You're both Apollonian and Dionysian. So life shouldn't be a list of tasks, goals, and accomplishments. It should be a kind of canvas that continue to be expanded, right? A song without end, or constant entering into new songs, joining with this music of existence. And this music of your life is the music of all life. And this ties back to Nietzsche and how he thought we should live, which is where instead of being someone who made something and being about that accomplishment of ours, we should be the accomplishment. Our life should be a work of art. He said, "Man is no longer an artist. He has become a work of art." Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's beneficial to kind of forget who you are for a moment, to forget about the goals, and to have this moment where you forget and you kind of return with this fresh perspective? Do you think that's necessary? Or do you think we should be disciplined and push through always? I think this is perfectly relevant to stuff that we struggle with every day, even today. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, thank you for watching.